Hello and welcome to Lewis Nichols Live Stories in association with Shane Solomon. I'm really excited to bring on our guest today, probably the smartest looking guest we have ever had, Mr. Keith Duffy.
Well, thank you very much, Lewis, for having me. But I mean, I got the memo. You did say creamy beige with a bit of blue, so that me and you would match into the sofas.
Honestly, it's the most effort anyone's ever gone to.
Well, I mean, you gave me the memo on the colour scheme. So
really
I thought I'd make an effort, We're here in Cornwall and it's nice to make an effort,
Well, today is all about you, and we're starting from the very beginning to kind of now, so there's a lot to cover. But I want to go back to the very beginning for you, which is kind of growing up and your childhood. So did you always have a love for music growing up? Did you kind of...
I'll take off my glasses so we can get serious. There's no sun in here. Growing up, my dad was a singer. My dad was a great singer and he was a hero of mine. He played guitar, piano, accordion was his instrument. Growing up, 6, 7 years of age, he played the accordion. So I grew up in a house where my dad he had a daytime job. He was a tailor, but come the weekend he'd be gigging. So every weekend he'd be going off, loading up the car with all his kit, the PA, the speakers, whatever the case may be, and he'd go off gigging every weekend. And as we got older, then there were certain shows that we'd be brought to. And my dad would be emceeing on some cabaret show, and it was all very amateur. Yeah. But he was a great singer. He was a super singer, and I'm a lot taller than my dad. My dad was only a small man, but he had great charisma, and he was a great front man. And I used to love sitting front stage watching my dad singing. And when he'd be hitting the high notes, I'd see the veins, the veins popping out on his neck when he'd be hitting the high notes. And I just remember being in awe of when he went for the high notes and the whole expression on his face. And I just loved the idea of being on stage. There's people that are introverts and there's people that are extroverts, and I always having said that, I was very shy, but I disguised my shyness by being loud and wanting to be the center of attention, even though I was shy. So it's quite bizarre. But yeah, it was a musical household growing up. My mother was involved as well. They would do the pantos at Christmas in the local amateur dramatics, and we'd always be associated with that. And I played Gaelic football and hurling, which is a tough sport. Yeah. But I also was in a dance class. I also went to dance classes, and they would put on a production maybe once or twice a year, and I loved that being on stage. But I suppose I was two different characters, because when I was in a production for the dance class or whatever kind of show we'd be putting on, I could be dressed up as a clown, And there was one year, they were having a parade. I don't know if it was the St. Patrick's Day parade, but having some sort of a parade around the housing estate where I grew up. And they had all the football teams, the hurling teams, and the dance school. And all my mates from the football club were all there with their hurley sticks and their football kit or their hurling kit. And I remember being dressed as a clown, and the guys on the football team just looking at me going, "What the fuck did you come with?" I was mortified, because there was a soft side to me, but then there was the tough side to me. But the guys that I played football with were the tough side, and they saw me dressed up in the soft side. I didn't expect to see them that day, and I remember being a bit embarrassed about it. But so the music was always in the house, and the entertainment was in the house.
With hurling, you did well, didn't you? You was like the under-16 Dublin team, is that right?
I did, yeah. I played for, first of all, it was Dublin schoolboys, and then I was in the Dublin North East team, and then I made the Dublin panel. I was playing a minor game when I was 17, playing for Dublin in a place called Parnell Park against Wexford, another county in Ireland. And it wasn't compulsory to wear a helmet in those days. It is now, and it always should have been, because it's a very dangerous sport. But I didn't like wearing a helmet. And my dad wasn't into sport. He was into the music side of things. I don't know where I got the sports side from, because I certainly wasn't from my dad. And one Christmas, they brought out this helmet called a micro helmet, which was like this big square helmet. And it was ugly and had a big face guard on it. The traditional helmet was literally just a piece of fiberglass, and it was a small, neat helmet. But I didn't like wearing any helmet, and I never wore a helmet. And my dad never came to any games, and he never realised the dangers. And he realised the dangers at some point in time. And then one Christmas, I was gifted this new micro helmet, which I hated. But the deal that my dad made with me was, if you're going to continue to play in that game, you're going to wear a helmet. So it's coming up to the end of the game, and there's a sideline, what's called a sideline cut. So in football, when the ball goes out, you throw it back in. In hurling, it's called a sideline cut, where you hit it's like a tennis ball size ball made out of hard leather, and you've got an ash stick. The length of it would be up to your hip, and you cut the ball basically back into play. And we were losing by 3 points, and I would take the sideline cut, and you can't. The face mask was kind of distorting my ability, so I took the helmet off and I threw it on the ground. There was like 5 minutes left in the game to take the sideline cut. I took the cut, I scored the point, and there was only, I think there was like 2 or 3 minutes left in the game, and I thought, I'm not putting my helmet back on. I'm going to finish the game. We need to win. And I jumped to catch the ball in the air, and the opposition swung their stick to hit the same ball that I was going to catch, and they hit me in the head.
Wow.
And I went down like a ton of bricks, and I had like a hairline fracture in my skull. I ended up in hospital for 3 weeks, getting brain scans done and all scans done to see what kind of damage had been done, because I kept getting very lightheaded and passing out. So look, it healed itself eventually, but I did end up having to go to hospital and spend a bit of time in hospital. And that was when I was 17, and I never played again after that, because Boyzone auditions came along, and I got interested in that. And obviously I ended up in the band. The band became very successful quite quickly, and I never was home again to play. So I've never played again since.
I mean, with you mentioned obviously the auditions came up with Boyzone, but is it right that you auditioned once, didn't make it, but then Louis saw you dance? Like, what was the story there?
No, I never auditioned at all. I knew the auditions were ongoing. There was no mobile phones back then, and myself and Shane Lynch, we grew up together, and we trained, we exercised and worked out in the same gym, and we knew each other. Now, we weren't great pals. I went out with his older sister when I was 15. So I knew Shane from going to his house to see his sister, but I know Shane from the time I was 8 or 9 years of age. He had 5 sisters. My younger brother dated 2 of them, and I dated one of them. And the only time we actually got on well was when I was dating his sister, because we were 2 handsome guys in the small neighborhood. So if I wasn't dating one of his sisters, I was competition for him. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So we knew of each other. We knew each other, but we weren't great pals. Our friendship grew much better when we joined the band, but he was already in the band. I'd seen his picture with Colin Farrell, who was an original member of Boyzone, the movie star. And they were on the front page of the Irish papers, the Herald and the Press. And it was Louis Walsh basically going, Ireland's answer to take that. Auditions are being held. And these were the first 2 members of the group, Shane Lynch and Colin Farrell. And I knew both of them separately. And I was thinking, I could do that. So I met Shane. I said, look, get me meet with your manager guy, man. I want to be in that band, because Shane didn't want me in the band because I was too much competition. So he never got me the meeting with Louis Walsh, and it was quite bizarre how it happened. I used to party in a place called the POD, Place of Dance in Dublin. It was the first proper nightclub where a DJ would mix the music like the Ministry of Sound in London. And it was adopted from the Ministry of Sound in Dublin, and it was the coolest place to go in Ireland. And it was the first venue where heterosexual and homosexual people partied together. And I didn't know a lot of gay guys at the time, but I was told like this place has has a big gay community. And I was very nervous because I didn't know anybody gay, and it was, I suppose, a novelty to meet people that were gay. And I was in the club dancing on the speak one night with no shirt on and a little black leather waistcoat and me white Levi's. And this guy was kind of pulling at my trousers because I was on top of a speaker. He's going, I want to talk to you. And I thought he was gay, and I thought he meant he wanted to bring me into the toilet. And I go, no, I'm straight. He goes, what are you talking about? I mean in the VIP room. And I got off the speaker and went into the VIP room, and it turned out that guy was Louis Walsh. And he brought me into the room and he asked me, could I sing? And I started thinking, what's going on here? I said, well, I like to sing. I sing in karaoke. I play the drums. I'm a drummer. But I said, is this something to do with the papers with Shane Lynch and Colin Farrell? He goes, yeah. Do you know the lads? I went, yeah, well, I grew up with Shane. I know Shane well. And he goes, oh, that's great. That makes for a great friendship already. So it was too noisy in the VIP room. So he brought me into kind of like the back office of the nightclub. And he asked me to sing a few notes. So I did. And he said to me, right, the final audition for this band is on Wednesday in the Ormond Print Works on the Quays in Dublin City Centre. Will you come at 7:00 on Wednesday night? I said, yeah. And I was all excited. But I think I partied a little bit that week. And when Wednesday came along, I suppose possibly maybe my confidence was lacking a little bit. And when it actually came to the crunch of auditioning, I just decided I had better things to do. So I never went. And at the time I was very rarely home. I'd be staying in one guy's house or another guy's house, and we'd be partying or whatever. And I was in college at the time, but dropping out more days than I actually went. I was doing an architecture course, and my mum got word to me that this guy called Louis Walsh had been on the phone giving out saying that I was supposed to meet him at 7:00, and I never turned up. And they had the auditions, but I didn't turn up, and he was looking for me. So he came looking for me. And then he said, look, we've got one audition left next week. I want you to be there. And I went. I think it was about the 14th or 15th of September in 1993. I had just come back from a 2-week holiday in Greece. I was quite tanned up and looking well. Anyway, I went to the final audition. There was hundreds and hundreds of guys going for these auditions, but the final week, the week I went, it was cut down to like 20 people. There was only 20 guys there. And it was a Thursday night. It was actually a Thursday night. And that very night, sorry, we met on the Wednesday night, and he called 10 back the following night, which was the Thursday night. And it ended up being 6 of us. There was 6 of us in the original lineup. And Louis said to us, after we realised that us final 6 were the chosen group, he said, the first thing you're doing, you're going on national television tomorrow night on the Late Late Show, which is a chat show, an infamous chat show that's been going over 50 years. And it would be one of the highest watched shows at that time in the island of Ireland. Nobody missed the Late Late Show. It was the one show, Irish show, that had international stars would go on that show to promote their movies or their music or whatever. And it was like, wow, we're on the Late Late Show tomorrow night. What are we going to do? We haven't sang anything. We haven't recorded anything. And Louis goes, it doesn't matter. I just want you to get seen. Make something up. And we thought, what? And it's that infamous clip now that everybody reminds me of when we're jumping around and dancing around like imbeciles in a nightclub, but we're on a TV show. And Shane's sister, Tara, was a dance choreographer. So she came to the TV studios earlier in the day and actually choreographed what that mess was that everybody saw on the telly. That was actually choreographed. And that's what we did. And we thought we were superstars, and we were too innocent and naive to realise that people were laughing at us and not with us at the time. And that was the first time anybody saw us, literally one night after we were put together. And that clip, any time when we became successful and we had hit records, every new territory that we went to, whether it be Germany or Belgium or Holland, or every chat show we did, the first thing they would do was play that clip for the audience. You know, so it became not only famous but infamous. And the rest is history. Then we went on to sell 60 million albums.
What's crazy though, to think if Louis didn't chase and pursue to get you to go to the auditions, what might have been and where your life would have gone if he didn't fight for you.
I've often thought that, but at the same time, I'm a great believer in what's meant to be won't pass you by. You know, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen. You know, what's meant for you won't pass you. So whatever way it happened, ultimately that carved out, I suppose, the start of my career.
Well, back in February on this show, we had Right Said Fred.
I know the boys.
Show. And I know you did you dance to I'm Too Sexy?
So we had to sing Careless Whisper by George Michael, and I chose not to. I chose to sing a song called The Piano Man by Billy Joel, because my dad, a lot of the music my dad did, he did a lot of Neil Diamond, he did a lot of Billy Joel. Later years then, my dad got back in the band in later years, like when I was gigging with Boyzone, and they called themselves Second Wind, and then in brackets, Two Old Farts. And it was him and a guitar player used to go out and do pub gigs. But at that stage then, he was doing The Verve, and he was doing Oasis, and he was doing all the covers. But I grew up when he was doing a lot of Billy Joel, and Piano Man was one song that I loved him singing. And I said, I want to sing The Piano Man. So I sang The Piano Man. But then Louis had various different media people in the audition studio, and he wanted to see if we had the ability to entertain, the ability to hold a stage. So they played Right Said Fred, I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt, and asked us to dance for the people that Louis had in the studio. So Shane and I had done a stint of male stripping when we were only teenagers. And I kind of transported myself into that frame of mind. And they just wanted to see us dancing. But I danced and took off all my clothes. Not all my clothes, but I took off my shirt and I danced for the females that were in the room, you know, which created a bit of banter and showed a bit of character and personality. And, you know, I ended up in the band, so it couldn't have been that bad.
Do you know, one thing I didn't know, and when I was doing the research of this interview, I didn't even know when I interviewed Shane, but you and Shane were involved in quite a serious car crash. Was it 94? Yeah,
94, the year after we got together. We felt going quite slow. It looked like Louis Walsh was prioritising another band that he used to book into clubs and nightclubs called Who's Eddie. The band was called Who's Eddie. And he just seemed to be so busy booking this band that we kind of felt that everything was kind of stalling and nothing was happening. And all of a sudden, Louis called us up one day and he said, I need you boys to come into the city centre, go to a shop. There was a shop on Suffolk Street called McCullough's, and it was a massive big store that had it opened that did all the John Richmond designer label clothes, and they did various different clothes, but it was all very much the club scene style at the time. And the guy that owned it, Gordon something or other was his name, Louis was a friend of his, and he had agreed to kit us all out in a really cool outfit because Louis wanted to introduce us to a guy called Tom Watkins. Now, I don't know if you know Tom Watkins, but Tom Watkins managed Pet Shop Boys, E17. I think he actually managed Bros for a while as well. And Tom Watkins was coming to Dublin to see us because I think it was either BBC or ITV were considering making a new version of the show The Monkees. Do you remember The Monkees?
No.
Do you not?
When was that out? So I'm 32.
Right, well, the Monkees were a band pretty much like...
I know the band.
They were a band, yeah. So the Monkees started off as a TV show.
Right, okay.
Right, and they were a band pretty much like the Beatles, right? And their fame grew from a TV show called The Monkees. And then they got a recording contract and they became a band. But it was a kind of, I suppose, the original reality TV, like the original kind of style of reality TV. Now, it was scripted and written and it was, you know, a drama, but there were four musicians in a band, and it was a TV show called The Monkees, and they were considering recreating that, and they wanted a new kind of excitable, energetic band to star in this TV show. And Tom Watkins was heading it up, and Louis Walsh was talking to him, and he flew to Dublin, and we went into the Gresham Hotel for him to see us and decide whether we'd be suitable for this new show. And it was very exciting for us because we thought, wow, we're going to have our own TV show. We're going to be like the Monkees. And we all got dressed up, and Shane was the only one that had a driving license. In Ireland back then, any young guy driving a car, 9 times out of 10, he was driving his mother's car because you couldn't get insurance on your own car. The insurance was crazy for young guys in Dublin. So you get a named driver on your mother's policy and you drive your mother's car. But Shane had his own car because he was a mechanic under his father who was a mechanic, and he had garage insurance, so it didn't cost the earth. So Shane picked us all up, brought us into the meeting, dropped everybody home, and we grew up in the same estate. So me and him were the last two left in the car. And earlier on that night, we were driving out of the city centre and we were pulled over by the Gardaí, the police, and they told us to put our seatbelts on. We hadn't got our seatbelts on. It wasn't really a compulsory thing. It only become a compulsory thing to wear seatbelts in 94, whatever. So we put our seatbelts on, and thank God we did, because like I said, after we dropped Rowan and we were coming down a country lane called the Feltram Road, and we were speeding, and we took over a humpback bridge. We got a bit of airtime, and it was in a Shane's Mark 1 Volkswagen Golf GTI. It's a lovely car, but he skidded on a corner and we clipped the curb, and the car went tumbling down the road, and we ended up in a upside down in a hedge, and it was very dramatic and scary, and it all went in slow motion. And ultimately we were left hanging in our seatbelts upside down in the car. And I was afraid to look over to see if Shane was still alive. And all I can hear him saying was, "Are you all right, bro?" I went, "Yeah, you." And he was, "Yeah, let's get out of this banger." And we were unharmed. We weren't injured at all. And I pressed my button to get out of my seatbelt. And I crashed into the roof because I was upside down. Yeah. And that I ended up nearly dislocating my shoulder from the fall. But that was after the crash. So I injured myself more by taking my seatbelt off. Anyway, the fire brigade, the ambulance, the police came and they couldn't believe that nobody was injured in the car. They went searching the ditches on both sides of the roads to see if there was any other bodies. But it was only the two of us. And if you saw the car we climbed out of, you would never believe anybody climbed out of it alive. And we were completely unscathed. It was unbelievable. Somebody up there was looking down on us that night, but it was all over the papers then because it was an extreme crash. But we didn't get injured.
My goodness, you were pulled over though, because if you didn't have your
if we didn't have our seatbelts on, we would have been out the windscreen, or we would have been out. We would have been thrown from the car. I'd say,
So obviously, you knew Shane before the band, but when you met the other band members, who did you kind of click with the most?
I suppose over the years, you build a different relationship with the different members of the band. Initially, I wasn't that close to Shane at all. I suppose I would have been closer to Ronan and Stephen. Moving on then, as success grew and as we spent more and more time with each other, I shared a room with Mikey. Mikey and I shared a room for quite a considerable time. I suppose we were similar characters. Over the years of all the band, I think we bonded in different relationships. And myself and Shane, when we got back together in 2007, Shane and I became much, much closer than we ever were before. I think maturity and growing older gives you a lot more clarity on life and people. And we realised, we're actually great pals. We just don't give each other enough time, and to this day now, myself and Shane would be very, very close. In the years after the band, 99, when we decided to take a year off, which ended up being over 7 years, Stephen and I became very, very close. And I would visit him very regularly in London. He lived in London, and I'd visit him very regularly, and I'd go to whatever production he was in at the time, whether it be Joseph or the Kid Catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, or at Christmas time when he'd done Pantos. I'd always make sure I go to see his show. So we hung out a great deal. I think the years 2008 into 2009 were my fondest memories of Boyzone, and cherished memories now, because we toured we got back together at the end of 2007. BBC Children in Need reached out to us, and we all hadn't been together at one point in time for 7 years. And actually Shane did a show called The Games, and he done very, very well in it. And on the final night, we all turned up I think it was in Sheffield, to cheer him on as a surprise. And that was the first time we were all together since we broke up, and then we didn't see each other again. And then at the end of 2007, they wanted us to do a medley of 3 of our songs for Children in Need. So we went into the studio for a week, and we put together a little kind of a structured choreographed dance routine for the medley of 3 songs. And we had a great time, and we enjoyed each other's company. And then our promoter, our agent, got in contact, said, "Look, guys, would you guys consider getting back together and doing a reunion tour?" And it worked. And it was huge, and we enjoyed it. We were older. We had a little bit more wisdom. We were aware of each other. We knew what buttons to press and what buttons not to press. So we became much closer as a band, and we became much closer as friends. And we really enjoyed 2008, touring the whole world in 2008. Coming into 2009, we were still touring, but we started to get into the studio to record a new album. We decided to make new music. And unfortunately, it was October 2009 when Stephen lost his life very tragically. And that kind of that's why I'm saying the experiences and the memories from 2008 and 2009 are the most valued ones now, because we were at that mature stage of our lives. We respected each other. We understood how lucky we were to be in the position we were. We were very grateful for the success that we had, and we were able to enjoy it a lot more because initially the record company had us run ragged, and we were too tired to be able to really appreciate and enjoy how lucky we had become and how successful we had become as a band. And it all gets blurred because you're so tired. In 2008 and 9, we had time to breathe, to see our families and to work. And we enjoyed our success a great deal. And then obviously with the loss of Stephen, looking back, they were the best years we had together. And the memories I have of those times with Stephen, I cherish now. So they were my favorite years in Boyzone.
You know, this year we were all given the opportunity to kind of be transported into that world with the documentary because, you know, I love Boyzone, but I never knew how much you all went through, how chaotic it was, how up and down it was. And this documentary really was a no holds barred. You know, we saw when you all got back together and it was a mix between love, emotion, a bit of anger from some members. When you were approached about this, and, you know, knowing how deep it was going to be, were you reluctant to take part, or were you like, yes, I want to do this?
No, I was reluctant to take part, and I was excited too. I had mixed emotions because the perception of success, I like a certain percentage of the perception of success, because you're rearing a family. I've got 2 kids. You're rearing a family. You're famous. You have a familiar face. And everybody has this perception that, you know, you're this pop star, and you've got, and the perception of wealth in our business as well. People just think you've got plenty of money, you know, you live this glorified lifestyle, and that's only a perception. But sometimes that perception suited me. It was easier just to allow people to think that that's the way it was. And then after living that life for so long, to do a documentary showing warts and all, and showing people the inside and letting people understand that it wasn't as glamorous as you might have thought. And, you know, we weren't maybe as rich as you might have thought. The reality and the privateness of some of that made me feel vulnerable. And I didn't want to feel vulnerable. I wanted to remain the person that people saw me as. I didn't want people to see the cracks, and I probably didn't want to see the cracks myself. But at the same time, it's real, it's honest. And you have to give an honest state of who you were. If you're going to do a documentary, you have to just be completely sincere and honest. And for me, that created a vulnerability that I wasn't sure I was ready for, or if I even wanted. Did I really want everybody to see, you know, the part of it that wasn't glamorous, or the part of it that I wasn't really that proud of? Or was I, you know, am I happy just to let people believe that it was amazing and that just makes it easy? And I suppose I came up with the conclusion that no, I think it would be actually like therapy, you know, for a therapeutic for me to be able to talk about the times that weren't as great as we all pretended they were at the time. Having said that, I enjoyed the experience. I'm delighted with the success of it. I've never watched it. I've only watched the first episode. And I watched the first episode because we went to all the premieres in London and Dublin to launch the documentary, and we had to sit in and watch they showed the first episode at the premiere. I never sat down and watched episode 2 or 3.
Why?
It was enough. It was enough for me. I made it. I know what's in there. It was hard enough, and I was very honest and sincere. I didn't want to live it. I didn't want to relive it. I got it out of my system. I don't need to watch it, you know. And when people come up to you and say, God, your documentary was brilliant, I don't have a reaction of, oh, thanks a million. I have a vulnerable, insecure feeling of, oh, you've seen it, so you know the cracks. You know the truth. And I don't know. I suppose I need to be proud of what we've achieved and look at it on a positive light. But there's parts of it that were just a little bit real and makes you relive things that weren't nice. And I'm a very positive person. I try to be a very positive person. And I would fear that it could possibly make me have an insecurity about part of my life or what I do. So I choose to accept the compliment that it was a great documentary, but refuse to watch it.
I think
And it's reliving Stephen's passing again and all that. I don't need to relive all that. You know, I've made peace with that. I celebrate Stephen's life and the part of it that I held with him at that time. You know, the sadness has passed over. Time is a great healer. And I celebrate the memories I have with him now rather than getting sad about his loss. And watching the documentary is a little bit sad and raw, you know?
Yeah. It was inspiring as well because even in the car earlier, you said that, so, you know, you're a shy person, but you put on this kind of almost a character to mask that. But was that exhausting for you in the sense of you'd go out and you would be Keith Duffy, the performer, which is essentially a bit of a character, but then you'd go back and then you could be you?
I didn't realize I was doing that. It's only as I got older and I look back. So when Boyzone broke up at the end of 99, I was always the joker. I was always the trickster and the joker and the funny one. But people don't take you serious when you're that character all the time. And I have a serious side to me. I have a very passionate, sincere side to me. But nobody ever knew that side of me. They just thought I was always the drinker, the partier, the joker. And in the time, in 2000, my daughter was born. Boyzone broke up at the end of 99. When my daughter was about 15 months, 18 months old, my wife and I realized that she wasn't progressing like my son had, who was 4 years older than her. And we worried that there might be a problem. And as weeks and months went on, we couldn't hide or pretend to each other that we didn't notice that there was something not right. And the word autism came into our world and it just suited what we were worried about. It kind of made sense. And that was shocking and upsetting and scary. And I had to grow up very, very quickly because when I got more information and I educated myself more on the situation at hand, everybody was saying early intervention is essential for the future of your child, but you can't access any services until your child is officially diagnosed by the state. But to get a diagnosis through the state, there was a waiting list of 3.5 years. So that goes back to early intervention is essential. So you're going to waste 3.5 years waiting on a diagnosis before you can access the services that you might need. This is not right. You know, what are we going to do? And my wife and I had to get very busy very quickly educating ourselves on what our daughter needed, joining different parent groups, other parents in the same positions as ourselves, finding out what they had researched and what they knew, what we needed to do. And we needed early intervention. We needed appropriate education put in place at the right time. We might have needed speech and language therapy. We needed all these things and we hadn't a clue where to go or how to go about it. So I had to grow up very, very quickly. I had to get clever quickly. This joker side of me, this loud kind of trickster kind of character, that needed to be parked offside for a while. I needed to kind of be a dad. I needed to be responsible, mature adult and figure out what I was going to do with this little girl. And that's what kind of made me start fundraising and become and being an ambassador for autism and ultimately opening the first school specifically for children with autism, which is ironic. There was 14 sets of parents and we all worked together to try and create this first educational facility for children with autism. But the state funding that we got was only enough money to take on 6 kids, and there was 14 families, so there's 14 kids, and we drew straws. And I was heading up the campaign because I was the one with the familiar face that could make a bigger difference. But all the parents pulled their weight. Everybody worked really hard to get this off the ground. But I was the one forefronting it because I had, like I say, the familiar face. And we picked out straws and we were number 11. So even though we had done all the work and set the school up and got the funding for 1 year, our daughter wasn't accepted into the school because there was only room for 6 kids and she was 11th on the list.
Wow.
So, but we didn't stop. We kept going and we fought and we fundraised. And within 6 months, we expanded the school for 18 kids. So our daughter got in and she went in there then from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was intensive intervention, but we saw results quite quickly. The point of the story is that I had to find the serious side of myself. And when I found the serious side of myself and realized that I'm not a joke, that I am an intelligent human being, that I have got the ability to be able to make difficult decisions and to educate myself and to read and to study and to find out what needs to be done. And I had a whole newfound respect for myself that I didn't have before. And I wasn't demanding other people to have the same respect, but I was asking them to be able to see past the joker, the party man, the drinker. There's another side to me. And I didn't know that was there. My daughter has brought that out in me. And it's important for me now for people to respect that and to see that person. I'm not just this guy that's great to go and have a pint with. There's a lot more depth to me. And it was through that process that I realized that I'd been this kind of character, this joker for so many years because I was shy. And I didn't know at the time because I played that character for so long, it just became who I was. But I realized I was a very insecure, sensitive young man that I thought everybody loved me because I'm great fun and I'm a party man. And then when anybody had a real problem and anybody needed to have a friend, I'd be the last person anybody would sit down and talk to because they didn't think I could take anything serious because I was always happy-go-lucky and funny and party man. But there was this whole other side. So when we got back together in 2007 and I was working with all the same people again, and Peter Andre supported Boyzone for years on tour, and we had a friendship. Let's say we knew each other, and we were pals. Sean Maguire was another guy who supported Boyzone, and we were great pals. But when we got back together, and I'd had 7 years with my daughter, and 7 years of growing and worries and pain and tears and upset and emotion, I was a different person. And when I met these people, they didn't see those 7 years. They were expecting me to be the guy that they met back in the 90s. And if they spent enough time with me, they were blown away by this other character that they didn't know existed. And it became very apparent to me how people saw me. And it was important for me, even our TV plugger, the people we worked in radio, everybody just expected that cheeky chap character that wasn't always funny because I did get it wrong sometimes. Trying to be funny, trying to entertain people, and sometimes I might have come across obnoxious or arrogant maybe, And I realized when I got back into Boyzone in 2007 into 2008 that I thought people just assumed that I had that kind of real, sensitive, honest side to me, but I preferred just to have fun. But they didn't know that side existed. So now it was a challenge for me now to be taken serious. To be taken serious, you can still have the fun, you can still have a bit of crack with the lads and have a beer, but there's a human being there that's a lot more intelligent, sensitive, clever, good. And people were shocked and amazed to understand that there was another side to me, and it wasn't just a happy-go-lucky guy that was hiding his insecurities and hiding his shyness,
Yeah.
And like I say, age and time and having the wisdom of your years allows you to analyze yourself and understand, where your faults and failings are and where your strengths are, and it's up to you then to portray the side of you that you want people to see.
It sounds like that was life-changing for you. And then today to see you and Lisa together, you have the most amazing relationship. So for you
I just do what I'm told.
But for you to have to kind of navigate a situation, because you're thinking 25 years ago, I know there's a lot of awareness with autism now. I did a course, there's a lot of government-funded things now, but 25 years ago, I imagine there wasn't.
Listen, there's not enough. There might be a lot, but there's still not enough. There are still families in the position where Lisa and I were 23 years ago that are pulling their hair out, frustrated because they can't access the services they need for their children. And that's why the Keith Duffy Foundation is back and busy, and we have a big golf do coming up, and we have a big black tie ball coming up, and it's all to create more awareness and to help from the ground up. We support schools, we support families, we support individuals. We are the fundraising that we do, it goes to all different places. Goes to equestrian centres to pay for children to spend time with horses, because children on the spectrum relate great to horses, and horses have a sense that they understand these kids. It's quite bizarre, but they can't afford it. So we pay for that. We pay for language therapy, speech and language therapy, occupational therapy. Like I'm talking individual families we help if they can't afford it themselves. Schools that have 7 or 8 children that might be on the spectrum, but they don't have an ASD unit within the school, we'll help them to build an ASD unit in the school. We'll put sensory rooms in schools for the kids that, need to express themselves, and they get excitable, and they need an area, a calm area where they can feel that they can express themselves and get rid of the anxiety and the excitement that they're feeling within themselves. So these sensory rooms are very important, and we put them in the schools. So there's a lot of, like you just said, there's a lot of government funding, maybe, but there's not enough, because the amount of work we do should be done by the state, and it's not. And I get email after email, letters after letters of families begging me, asking me for guidance and help. And that's why I've gone so far back into the fundraising and the awareness for autism. Back in the day, my daughter benefited from the work that we were doing because she got a place in the school and so on. Nowadays, thank God, my daughter's doing very, very well. She's working for an American pharmaceutical company. She's coding online. She's got a good job. She's very content and happy. Her best friends are me and our mammy and her brother, and we're probably her only friends. She doesn't have a social network, so her social time is with us, and she enjoys that. For any child on the spectrum, the best thing any parent can have is to make sure, or do, is to have a smile on their kid's face. There's always going to be the hidden problems and the obstacles. You deal with them on a day-to-day basis. But the bigger scheme of things is having a smile on the face. If you can keep a smile on the face the best part of the time, you'll deal with the other problems as they come and go. And that's what we have. We've got a daughter that has a massive smile on her face. There are obstacles there. There are things there that we'd like to change. But the bigger picture is having that smile on her face for now, and we'll deal with the other shit as it comes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And do you think that's what has kind of strengthened you, in the sense of made you and Lisa so strong, is that you kind of grown with your daughter's autism, and I guess you've grown together and you've been through much because you went through that change in the sense of realising, because I can relate to that. I'm very much I was always called the class clown, but actually at home, I'm very sensitive, very deep, and similar to you, people wouldn't come to me for advice because I'm the joke, I'll make people laugh, so it's quite interesting you say that. But do you think that's what's made you two so strong?
Well, we've been together a long, long time now, and we're talking here, and I'm doing all the talking. But there's a very, very solid support mechanism in my life, and that's my wife. She's the best. She's the best. I mean, she's sitting over there, but she's the best mother I've ever seen. Her maternal instinct from the time my kids have been born has been phenomenal. My children adore her. Her relationship with my son, who's nearly 30, is remarkable. And the relationship she has with my daughter is just so beautiful to see and to watch. My daughter adores. They told us that children with autism are not affectionate. They don't show love. They'll never give you a hug. My daughter doesn't stop hugging her mammy. She never stops kissing her mammy. I'm away a lot at the time. So, my wife and my daughter spend a great deal of time together. My wife has no husband at the best of times because I'm always away working. But my daughter fills my void very, very well. In fact, she sleeps on my side of the bed when I'm not there with my wife. Oh. So to answer your question, it's a team effort. I had the familiar face. I went out there and, did what I had to do. But Lisa was behind me the whole time, pushing, helping and being, I was the flames, she was the logs, you know what I mean? And we were a burning fire.
I love that. That's really nice.
Just made that up.
That should be your name of your autobiography.
There you go. I'm the flame and she's the log. No, I'm the flame and she's the log. Is that what I said? It doesn't sound that glamorous now.
Going back to the documentary, I wanted to kind of, it showed us there were tensions within the band at some stages. And when Ronan then went kind of solo and did his own thing, did that cause tensions in the band?
Yeah, absolutely. Because we all started with the same dreams and the same aspirations of what we wanted to achieve and where we wanted to go. All of these dreams were coming true overnight. Every time we got a phone call, it was good news. You've just sold out your tour in America or in Australia. You've just gone #1 in Germany. Like you get so used to these positive phone calls, these exciting, and there was 5 people to share that experience with, to share your first big paycheck, getting your first fast car. These milestones for young boys growing up that came from the north side of Dublin, and none of us were going to ever go really to third level education. You know, we all had dreams like any kid, but our dreams are going to come true. And like I said, we all had the same dreams and aspirations. You know, Louis, the lead singers of a band become more popular than the backing singers, you know? And in the first studio session that Boyzone did, a guy called Ian Levine, he didn't like Ronan's voice. So Mikey and Stephen done the lead vocals on the first couple of songs, and Ronan didn't sing. And Louis pushed Ronan forward and pushed his vocals on other producers, and Ronan's voice obviously developed, and he's a great singer now, and he's better now than ever. But with that, you get a lot more kudos from the media, from the industry. As Shane, Mikey, and myself, more in the background, we didn't get the type of celebration that Ronan and Stephen did because they were the lead singers. So when you know, taking the break at the end of '99 was very much Ronan's idea. Now, the egos in the band at the time was like, when Ronan suggested that he had lost his mum, and his mum and him were very, very close. And at the time, how he explained it was that he had songs he had written himself that were more about him and his life, and he wanted to have time to experiment with his own his own individuality and his own solo project. But it was around about the same time that we were about to we were about to get the biggest deal ever in America. And it was very exciting. Now, having said that, we'd been run ragged by the record company. And if we were to take this deal in America, it would have meant leaving our families for about a year. You know, we'd see them sporadically over the year, but we would be flat out touring America. And it wouldn't be good for family. And two of us, I think maybe three, had children at the time. So it was easy to say we lost that opportunity because we broke up. But the reality is, if we had have taken that deal, maybe my family situation wouldn't be the way it is now. So you have to just believe that everything is done for the right reason. Do you know what I mean? But I did try to keep the band together. I was the one going, lads, we're going to be bigger than ever. Breaking up now is the wrong time. We're the biggest in the business at the moment. We're massive. We keep going. We're going to break America. And Shane felt similar, but Mikey, Stephen, and Ronan were happy to go solo. Stephen had got a record deal. I think Mikey was talking about a record deal. Who was going to give me and Shane a record deal? Nobody had heard us singing lead vocals. Nobody had heard us singing a song. In our live shows, we all did our own songs, but they weren't released as singles. So nobody actually knew what Keith Duffy was like as a solo singer. And because we were suppressed a great deal by Louis in case we got too big for our boots. And we allowed the fame go to our heads, and we decided we're going to get rid of our management. Louis was fearful that the monster would become bigger than the creator. So he would insult us in public to bring us down and try to ground us. We didn't need grounding. The women in our lives always grounded us. Our wives, our mothers, our girlfriends, whatever. You know, we didn't need Louis insulting us in front of people and being sensitive. You know, meeting Bono from U2. Like, I'm a huge U2 fan. Massive Larry Mullen fan. I love drums. Larry was my hero. But Louis introduced me to them. This is Keith from Boyzone, the one that can't sing. I died 1,000 deaths when I was shaking Bono's hand that day. I thought, wow, Jesus, no need for that, you know, and it hurt. But he would do that thinking that it wouldn't bother me, like it'd be water off a duck's back, because get over it. And he would do it to keep you grounded, to make sure you knew he was still the boss, you know. Anyway, so when we broke up, then I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. I knew I had no choice of a solo career at that time. I had been on stage in amateur dramatics, pantos, this, that, and the other. I had done a couple of short movies that I really enjoyed. But I really didn't know what to do. But what I did know was that I had a familiar face now. People knew me. And I needed to get, not Keith from Boyzone, but Keith Duffy. I needed to be known as an individual and not just a member of Boyzone. Because Boyzone are broken up now and I need to find a new career. So acting was something that I was very interested in. Television presenting at the time, I thought I could do a good job at that. So I got myself an artist agent in London. And the first gig that came up was the very, very, very first Celebrity Big Brother for Comic Relief. And it was offered to me, no money, free, because it's for comic relief. So we didn't get paid to do it.
Wow.
And I was in the house doing Big Brother on the 11th of March, 2001, because it was my daughter's first birthday and I was locked up in the house. And I had everybody in the house sing her happy birthday, go into the diary room and sing my daughter happy birthday. And they showed none of it on television. My wife watched it at home, and the whole day of Big Brother, there was no mention at any point in time that it was my daughter's first birthday, because the producers thought if they put out the song and everything that we did for my daughter, it would make me the favorite in the house. Look at this guy singing happy birthday to his 1-year-old, giving up his time for his daughter's first birthday to come in and do a charity event. It would just look too favorable to me, because it's the public voting. So they never showed any of it. Anyway, that's when I was on TV. I was very much myself, probably said and did things that I regret today because it upset members of my family. But my character of Keith Duffy came across. And now, taking into account, that's before we realised that Mia might have autism. So I was still very much the loud, obnoxious joker, making people laugh. And the producer of Coronation Street at the time, Kieran Roberts, was of Irish descent. His father, mother, grannies, whatever, were from Ireland, and he loved his Irish heritage, and he wanted to have an Irish character in Coronation Street. So, out of the blue, I get a phone call from this booking agent in London saying, the casting director, June West from Coronation Street, has been on the phone, and she wants to know, will you go up to meet the executive producer, Kieran Roberts, next week? Now, she specified there's no job for you. They're not looking to hire you. They just want to meet you. But they don't want to meet you for no reason, so there must be something in their mind. I said, yeah, I'll go. So I went up to Manchester. I wore a 3-piece suit and a shirt and tie. And as I said to you earlier on, I believe what's for you doesn't pass you. I believe in fate and destiny. I always believed that my career wasn't over at 26. There's definitely something else coming around the corner. I don't know what that is, but the Coronation Street fitted my ideal. And I thought, I'm going to get this job because this is what's supposed to happen. My faith and my belief in destiny is I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be on the television's biggest soap. And I went up to Coronation Street, and I got the train from London up to Piccadilly, from Euston to Piccadilly, and I didn't know Manchester, and I didn't know geography. This was back in 2001. And you didn't have Google Maps and all that shit back then. And I got off at Piccadilly, and I was about 3 hours early for my interview. So I just walked and thought and walked and thought and kind of interviewed myself in my head as to the questions I thought that this guy might ask me. And then I was trying to come up with the answers that I thought were the right answers for me, for him. And I looked at my watch and thought, fuck, I have to be there in 10 minutes. I better start finding out where Granada is. And I was stood outside the front door of Granada. Wow. Just completely coincidentally. I'd been walking for 3 hours. And I was down because my career had ended. I'm trying to support my family. I wanted this. And it wasn't about the money. I was financially secure at the time. We'd made a lot of money at this stage. But it was a future. It was making me fulfill me. And it was my belief in fate and destiny. And then the fact that it was outside Granada, I thought, this is a good sign. So I went up and I sat down and I spoke for an hour with Kieran Roberts. And we had great chats, and we got to know each other, and he told me about his family in Ireland and da-da-da-da-da. And I explained who I am. I'm very honest, I'm very, I wear my heart on my sleeve. He got that from me. He said, look, I really didn't bring you here to screen test you, or I just wanted to get a feel from you, and maybe down the road we might create something. But he said, there's nothing. He said, having said that, I haven't met you. He says, we're screen testing at the moment for the character who's going to be Mike Baldwin's nephew. It's a very big, very fast-paced role. We shoot 6 to 8 episodes a week. It's a hands-on from hit the ground running. And he said, but we're in the Rovers today screen testing for this character. He's going to play Mike Baldwin's nephew, and he's going to take over the knicker factory, and he's going to run the knicker factory, right? So he said, there's the script. Go and learn it for an hour and come back and we'll screen test you. We might as well now that you're here, he said. I said, yeah, cool. So I got really excited. I thought, wow, everything is falling into place. So I went off and read the script and learned the script. I went in. It was very surreal because you've got Fred Elliott at the bar with Mike Baldwin, and you've got Shelley behind the bar, and you've got all these characters that you see in TV, and all of a sudden you're in the bar, in the Rovers, about to try to get a part to work with these people every day. It was so surreal. And I did the best I possibly could. And later on, I met a girl called Gina Gregory, I think her name was. She was a bar girl in the Rovers. She goes, we've seen 7 people today, and you were by far the best. And she really got me going. She goes, I thought, wow, I must have a real shot here. I must have a chance here. So I was doing a lot of presenting for the Lorraine Kelly show on Sky at the time. And I was staying in a pub in London called the Hampton Court Palace. It was an Irish girl that owned the pub. And she had 3 rooms upstairs. And I preferred staying there than staying in a hotel. And Shane Lynch used to come and we'd play a bit of pool and we'd eat in this pub. And I'm playing pool with Shane one day and I get a phone call from my agent. And she goes, just want to let you know, we've heard from June West, the casting director, Coronation Street. They loved meeting you, but they're not going to go with you on this occasion. And they just rang to say thanks for your time and thanks for going to Manchester. But they loved you, but you know it's a very fast-paced role, and they need an experienced actor. You don't have enough experience to be able to keep up with the load of scripts. So I was devastated, and it wasn't about not getting a job. It was about my belief in fate and destiny had been destroyed, and I actually got quite emotional. And Shane could see I was upset, you know. And Shane, being Shane, goes, they're fucking lost, man. Don't mind them. They're lost. You know what I mean? You would have been brilliant, you know. And he kind of cheered me up. About 2 days later, I decided to ring the casting director because I'd calmed down now. And I thought, you know, the very fact that they even considered me when I've no experience, I'm coming out of a boy band, that was very decent of them. So I'm going to ring her and say thank you. So I rang her 2 days later and I said, listen, it's Keith Duffy here. I hope you don't mind me calling you. I just wanted to say thank you so much for bringing me up and giving me that experience of going into the Rovers and meeting these guys. I thought, you know, looking back now, it was a great experience and I really appreciate the time you've given me. And she said, have you not spoke to your agent today? And I said, well, I don't have an agent. It's just a booker in London. He goes, well, the girl we were speaking to, have you not spoken to today? I said, no, why? She goes, oh, you might want to give her a ring. I said, okay. So I rang her. I said, are you supposed to? Oh, I was just about to ring you, Keith. I said, what's going on? They've decided to take your screen test to the annual writers' meeting in London next week, where the 17 writers of the show get together to decide future storylines. And they're going to pitch for them to create a character for you. But they won't know for about a month or 2. And 3 weeks later, I get a phone call asking me, could I start in 6 weeks? They've created a character called Kieran McCarthy that was in the Navy with Peter Barlow, and he's gone AWOL, and he was a chef in the Navy, and he's coming in and he's going to hang out with Peter Barlow. And it's only 3 episodes, and I was there on and off for 10 years. So
the guy that contacted you was called Kieran.
Yeah.
And then your character was called Kieran as well.
The guy that contacted me was called Kieran, Keiran. And he got me my character, Ciaran.
It's incredible as well because you were very much the sex symbol of the show. It was, people loved it, and you kind of fit in really well. So you said about being starstruck, and you're looking at some of the people there. Like I would have been, oh my God, it's Ken Barlow, it's Deirdre, and you were there with. We were talking earlier. Every iconic Corrie character you can think of, you were there with.
I was in the show at a very, very, very pinnacle time because all the original characters that were there from day dot were still in the show. Unfortunately, a lot of them have passed away now. I mean, Mike Baldwin was a great pal of mine. We lived in the same apartment block, so we'd often have a glass of wine together in the evening and do lines together. And he was, Johnny Briggs was his name. He was a great character. He was one of the old school actors that was in the Second World War. You know, the stories you could tell. He was a boxer in the army, you know, and he came into then doing movies in the 60s and 70s and ended up in Coronation Street. So it was such a great experience listening to his stories and you know, Fred Elliott, a great storyteller as well. And I just got on really well with all those people. And you know, you've got all these platforms for TV now, like Netflix and Paramount and Amazon. And, you know, people have so much choice now that the shows like EastEnders and Coronation Street, they just don't have the viewers anymore, I don't think. You know, a lot of the characters have passed, but I think a huge part of the success of these shows is the audience. You know, I mean, at one stage, Corrie was getting 16 to 18 million viewers. I don't even know if they break 1 million now. Yeah. You know, so it's kind of sad. It's a dying show, I think. I mean, I heard a rumor EastEnders is ending next March, I think. You know, and
that's like my favorite show. I just know.
I heard EastEnders is closing their doors seemingly next year, and if that happens, you know, I think it's probably only a matter of time before the likes of Corrie does it, which would be very, very, very sad. You know.
You just left me speechless. I don't know if that's a prank or not, but like that's my favourite
show I'm not pranking you. Whatever I'm telling you is fact. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Going back to Corrie, obviously working with such esteemed actors, and you've come in, you've obviously worked in the music industry. Did somebody take you under their wing in the sense of giving you some guidance and pointers?
Chris Gascoigne, who played Peter Barlow, was an absolute godsend. And Sally Lindsay, who played Shelley, was a godsend. They were the people I had my storyline with. It was in their own interest for me to be good or to be better than I was. So they put a lot of their own time into the scenes that we had together, and they helped me no end. They were brilliant. There was other actors there that didn't like me. There was other actors there that made me feel very unwelcome because, you know, they've gone to drama school, they've gone to RADA. You know, this is the skill set that they've worked years to have, and you can't just come out of a boy band and come into our job. And there was that type of an attitude from certain actors at certain times. The majority of them were very welcoming, and I had a great experience in front and behind the camera. The crew, the makeup artists, the cable guys, I got on great with the crew. I always do, you know, and the girls in makeup and all. I had a great relationship with all of them. But yeah, Chris Gascoigne is a seasoned actor, a great actor, and he took me under his wing, gave me advice, guided me in the right direction. Sally Lindsay again, who played Shelley, she was brilliant. I was staying in the Q&A, the Queen Albert Hotel that used to be at the back of Coronation Street, where it used to be down in Key Street. It's all gone over to Media City now. But they used to put the travelling artists up in the Q&A hotel. And they would come over to my hotel in the evening, in their own time, sit down and go through all the scripts, help me out, help me see what I wasn't seeing in the writing, help me understand my character, help me grow my character so that I understood what he would do in that situation. And, you know, it's down to them that I didn't only do 3 episodes, that I ended up doing 3 years, came out for a year, went back in for 2 years, came out and then went back in for a couple of years. It was down to them that I had, you know, the ability to go back in, or I was asked back.
Obviously, the character was a fan favourite. People absolutely loved him. So why the first time did you decide to leave and step away from the show?
Well, I didn't decide to leave. The character's storyline ran its course, but then they brought the character back because they liked the character. Yeah. So it wasn't my decision. But then when I was in there, I decided to leave because the band were getting back to do a reunion tour. And I couldn't come out and go back in. They wouldn't let actors do that. Because there was actors in the show that wanted to come out at Christmas to do pantomime because they can make a lot of money in pantomime at Christmas. You know, they come out of Corrie, do 3 weeks work in panto and make 6 months' wages. You know, so they didn't like that. They didn't like actors doing that, so they didn't let them do that. So I left, but then I tell you what happened. I was gone, and at the end of 2009, what happened was I was in a pretty dark place after Stephen died, and Kieran Roberts found out. Kieran Roberts, when I was out of Corrie for a while, he asked me to be in this other show that ITV were putting together, and as a cameo role, as myself. And he asked me could I get another member of Boyzone, and I got Stephen. And Stephen and I travelled to Manchester to do a cameo in some other drama they were putting together. We were playing ourselves, and Kieran was delighted that I brought Stephen in. And after Stephen died, he heard that I was in a bit of a dark place, and he reached out to me and asked me. He gave me a job. Wow. He gave me something to do, to you know, to focus on, to keep me active. And I went back in at the end of, I think it was the end of 2009 or coming into 2010, and I stayed for 2 years. I left then in 2012, but he found out that I was, you know, that I wasn't working, I wasn't busy doing anything, and that I was after having a difficult time. So he made me busy. He got me very, very busy, which was great, which was a godsend.
You know, in the industry, you sometimes hear stories where if you benefit someone, you know, they want to be around you. So to hear something like that, where somebody really looked out for you and actually thought, I want to help you, that's quite rare,
Yeah.
you know?
He was a super guy. You know, he was great at what he did, and he was compassionate, and he wasn't just a collar and tie. He was a human being who cared about the cast and the crew, the show, and he brought Corrie from strength to strength while he was there. He was, you know, and I'll always be very grateful to the opportunities that he gave me. I ended up leaving Corrie and going back and going into a show called Fair City, which is kind of like the Dublin soap. And I went in there for a year. You know, from that then I ended up in my first theatre show called Dandelions with Pauline McGlynn, who played Mrs. Doyle and Father Ted.
Oh, nice.
Who's recently just got a part in Coronation Street. And a girl called Deirdre O'Kane, stand-up comedian and actor from Dublin. There was 4 of us, Don Bradfield. And I did my first stage play, which was a complete sellout. And from that, then I met a lady by the name of Gary Hines, who is an esteemed director in Broadway and in the West End. She's an Olivier winner. She's a Tony winner, and she met me she asked my agent and me to meet her in a hotel in Dublin, and she cast me in John B. Keane's play, Big Maggie, where I played the Irish Travel, like a huge role, a very poignant, important role in a beautiful play. And they trusted me with that part. And I never would have got that if it hadn't been for Corrie or Fair City or Dandelions. Everything kind of helped the next thing along. And we did a full tour of Ireland with Big Maggie, John B. Keane. And then about 2 years later, they brought it back and they gave me the job again. And I met John B. Keane's wife. She's passed now. But on the first run, John B. Keane's sons and his missus came to the show, and Teddy Healan was the part I played, and many, many actors have played him before me. But and they might have just been saying it to be nice, but they told me that the version of Teddy Healan that I played was their favourite by far out of all the ones they'd seen before. So that was a nice compliment to get. But again, they might have just been nice to me, you know.
I don't know. I think they would have meant it.
Well, I do believe they meant it, but I'm just putting that in there to be a little bit coy, you know.
I just wanted to go back to the music side of things because, you know, we were talking about the success, but I mean, the success was huge. I mean, really. And I was telling you earlier, my favourite is Love Me For A Reason and Father and Son. But Love Me For A Reason very much catapulted you in the sense of Boyzone of fame in the UK, especially because it went, I think, number 2.
Yeah, it was our first UK hit.
When that happened for you, and then you got a taste of that, the huge side of fame that come with it. Did you love that? Was it for a band? Was it, oh my God, we're finally doing it?
I didn't think I deserved it. I didn't think I was talented enough to have that success. And I always had a fear that I'd be found out and that it could be taken away as quick as it was given to you. So for that reason, I didn't enjoy it as much as I should have. Because I always had a fear. We as a band had a fear we were going to be found out. And then years and years later, you know, I realized that a lot of very successful bands have the same fear. You know, I remember we were doing a gig with U2 in Germany, and I went up to Bono afterwards and said, "Oh man, wow, great performance." He goes, "Yeah, still getting away with it." And it blew my mind that he said that to me, because I thought, wow, even Bono saying that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I suffered maybe a little bit of imposter syndrome for a while, thinking I wasn't good enough. I was told I wasn't good enough by Louis. And I was lucky to be where I was. And I suppose I believed that. And I had a bit of imposter syndrome for years. And I didn't really celebrate our success because I like I said, as quick as it happened, I was afraid it could be taken away. And for that reason, I didn't allow myself to get too engrossed in the celebrations of it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially in the type of band we were, a boy band. If I was a singer-songwriter playing the guitar, like Ed Sheeran or something, I think you could enjoy your success a lot more because you feel that you've fulfilled the requirements of what you're supposed to be or who you're supposed to, you know, what way you're supposed to do the gig. But it's only years and years later you look back and it doesn't really matter what kind of music it is that you're doing. If you're selling out 15 nights in the one arena and you've got kids queuing around this, you know, that's your audience and they're happy. And you're providing that entertainment. And it's you they're coming to see. So whether you believe in yourself or not, you've done something right. And whether you like it or not, you are that person now. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, don't be worried about what other people think. Have your own view on yourself and enjoy yourself accordingly to how you see yourself. And I suppose I probably was always a bit too hard on myself. And with good reason, like I said. People thought because I was a handsome guy and I kind of fitted the bill, people thought that I might have been very big-headed and into myself. They didn't realize there was a very sincere, insecure person underneath all that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and you just play the game.
I mean, Louis in the documentary didn't come across well at all. I mean, just seeing his reaction to various things, it came across like he lacked emotion. He lacked empathy. And hearing just little stories there in the sense of, if someone was to say to you, oh, the one that can't sing, that would get to anybody, you know, it really would. But talking in the car, you actually have fond memories and you understand Louis very well. So do you think the reaction, I know you haven't watched it back, but do you think the reaction is fair from the public?
Yeah, I think the reaction is fair. I can understand why the public had the reaction they did, but they don't know Louis like I do. And you just made 2 points there that he lacked charisma or emotion and empathy, right? Those two words, emotion and empathy. He lacked them. He does lack them. In life, he lacks empathy and emotion. I suppose at times he might be a little bit emotionally detached. And yeah, he'd lack empathy. So if that's a crime, if lacking empathy and lacking emotion is a crime or it's a bad thing, well, he's guilty of that. But I can understand why people were disappointed in him from, he wasn't edited to look bad. He said what he said.
Yeah.
It wasn't falsified. It wasn't edited together to make him look bad. He said what he said because he thought he didn't understand the audience he was talking to, right? You have to have empathy for young boys if you're going to take control over their lives at 16 and 17 years of age. If you're going to put them on TV, if you're going to make them famous, you have to have a little bit of responsibility for these kids because they're only learning, they're only growing, you know? And he lacked a little bit of that emotion or empathy. But when you get to know him, you realize he's not evil. He's not trying to hurt you. He wouldn't be hurt if you said the things to him. It'd be water off a duck's back. So he can't understand why you're hurt by what he said. Yeah. He didn't realize people are different. Everybody is different. Some people are more sensitive than others. He would assume that you'd react how he would react, and you can't assume that. You know, if you're giving somebody a compliment, give them a compliment. If you're insulting somebody and you need to do it, mean your insult. You can't play both sides.
Yeah.
Right? And he tried to. And unfortunately, he's not the bad man that comes across in that documentary, but he is a man that lacks empathy and emotion.
I find him funny. I mean, we spoke
in
the
car. He's fucking
hilarious.
Some of the things he comes out with, if it's not about you, yourself, it's very funny. It's only when he does it to you that you get a little bit, you know.
In Big Brother, he was savage to Fern. You spoke a lot about Stephen, you know, in the interview, and it seems that you two really had the most special friendship. And talking earlier, we had a drink together and you were telling me some stories and it just seemed beautiful. He could be himself around you, which was nice. So what did he mean to you?
Do you know what? As we already established earlier, you know, I'm a very straight man. But a lot of alpha males, you know, draw a line between...
By the way, I didn't try it on with him when you say that, as we established earlier. What? If people watching this think I tried it on with you or something, it's going to...
I should be so lucky. No, I'm very tactile.
Yeah.
And whether that's my wife or my mate, and my mate happens to be gay, I'm tactile. You know, I'd have no problem Stephen used to be, he didn't like the dark, and he'd get fearful at times, and he'd come and stay in my room and sleep in my bed. And I'd have no issue with that. There's other men that would have an issue with that. A gay man in their bed. Never bothered me at all, I loved him, I hugged him, I kissed him. I'd shock him sometimes because, he always thought I was a bit mad. He always, oh, you're mad, Duster. He always thought I was a bit mad, So I'd shock him sometimes when we'd be drunk and I'd stick my tongue down his throat. Oh my God, But there'd be absolutely nothing in it for me. I'm literally just trying to wind him up. Do you know what I mean? And that's how easygoing I am. And we had a great relationship, and he loved the fact that I was so flippant about his sexuality. I couldn't care less. I love you regardless of your sexuality. And he loved that, and Shane was very good with Stephen as well, look, he was our special friend, my kids loved him. My wife loved him. We did a lot of things together. We had family holidays together. In the time when Boyzone wasn't together, I saw him a lot more than the other lads did. We became great pals. And it was just sad because he had lived so many years unhappy. He had lived so many years unhappy because he wasn't able to come out because he was in a boy band. And then ultimately the shock of being outed by a newspaper and the stress and the anxiety that came with that at that time, he was a walking like nervous wreck. But then when it came out and when people celebrated him, and when he realized it was okay to be gay and to be out and to live honest and to have relationships with whoever he wanted, he just blossomed into this beautiful, beautiful character. And he just became, we called him our Duracell bunny. He just became so happy, and he loved us. He loved his four brothers. He loved being in Boyzone. He loved being a part of us. He loved having us there, loving him unconditionally. He loved being on stage. He loved performing. He loved singing. He got camper and camper by the day. Every time I go back to London, he'd become an even more camp, and he'd be his facial products and his treatments that he'd have done for himself,
And then doing it to you as well.
And then he'd do my cleanse, tone and moisturize on my face to sober me up and pretend he wants to try these products on my face, but really he's pouring a litre of water into my mouth to sober me up, to stop me acting like a maggot down at the bar. He was a huge, huge loss. I loved my little gay friend. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
And I know earlier you said, obviously, the documentary you relived a lot, and you don't want to do that. But the bit that for me that I found really emotional was the fact the night that he was in the church, you all came together because you said there he didn't like being in the dark, so you spent the night with him. And Shane was saying it was actually, you all had fun and you were sharing memories and funny stories. So what was that night like for you? Was it the same as Shane in the sense of you were just talking about your brother?
It just felt right. It sounds so bizarre when you hear four lads slept on the floor of a church beside the remains of their mate the night before his funeral, but it just felt right. It didn't feel wrong or awkward. It felt lovely. It felt peaceful. We laughed, we cried, we giggled. The ironic thing about it is we were all big drinkers. We all loved to have a drink, Stephen included. And after being in a boy band from Dublin, from Ireland, and the country is so renowned for its rock music and traditional music, and the success that we have around the world with rock music and traditional music, when Boyzone was formed, the first pop group out of Ireland, nobody liked us. The media didn't like us. The industry didn't like us because we were cheap pop. We weren't playing musical instruments. We weren't writing our own songs. And they didn't like that reputation. They preferred to have the trad rock. It's a small country. It's a small population. And we took a lot of shit off guys our own age, our peers, when we started in the band, when we became famous, when we done that late show. We'd be called names. We'd be insulted. You go into a pub and you wouldn't know if people are going to go, "Oh, we love you," or they're going to give you a box, buy you a pint or give you a box. You just don't know. And it creates a horrible insecurity every time you go outside the door, and we experienced that for years, One Direction, I think, were the first boy band really to have a much more male following than just female. Because our audience was predominantly female, with very, very few males in our audience. I think today it's different. I think
Yeah.
It's a lot more liberal now to be in a band, a pop group, you know. I mean, obviously Westlife came from the same stables as Boyzone. They probably had an easier ride than we did because they went in on our coattails. We had kind of broke down the doors, laid the carpets. We've gone from the nightclubs to the city halls to the arenas. Westlife went straight to the arenas because they were our support act. So they just went straight in. We broke up in 99. They got together in 98. Boom, ready to go. Do you know what I mean? But the night we were in the church with Stephen, the amount of goodwill from Irish people was phenomenal because we're always used to being insulted and putting down. But when you see the change in tide and you see the people that actually care about you and the amount of people on the radio and everybody was talking about it and we didn't realise. And then we're in the church about 7 o'clock in the evening and there's a knock at the sacristy door. And the guards are circling the church. The fans are all asleep outside because they found out that we're going to be sleeping with Stephen that night. So they camped in their sleeping bags outside the church. The Gardaí were doing the security around the church. So if there was a knock at the door, we knew it was allowed, whoever it was allowed in because the guards had let them by. And there's a camping shop in Capel Street in Ireland called Army Bargains. And they do all your camping equipment, sleeping bags, tents, mattresses, knives, whatever, lights, burners. And they sent up 4 mattresses and 4 sleeping bags.
Wow.
Right? And we were blown away by that. We were going, oh my God, how kind is that? It made us really emotional. Stephen would love that. And then later on, there's a very famous fish and chip shop in Dublin called Burdocks. It's called Burdocks. And it's famous fish and chips. You have to get some when you're there. It is special. And Burdock sent down a big box of fish and chips for us in case we were hungry. And then around the corner from where Stephen grew up, there's a place called the IFSC. It's kind of like a financial district in Dublin. But there's a few kind of posh wine bars and bars opening up down there. And they sent down a box of beer and a couple of bottles of wine. You know, and we were just blown away by the kindness, you know. And I was saying to you, we were drinkers. We had all the beer and the wine there. We opened a bottle of wine. And for some reason, and it wasn't purposely talked about or decided on, none of us had any interest in having a drink that night. None of us, not one of us. None of us finished the glass of wine we poured. And that is just not us. Not us as a group. Maybe 1 or 2 might decide they're not having a drink, but none of us. And we didn't say, I'm not going to drink tonight. We just looked around and goes, geez, lads, nobody's finished their drink and we haven't poured a second one. That's mad. And we were in this comfortable feeling that we had a job to do. And that was to keep our brother company for the night because the next day was going to be a carnival. You know, we knew the press, the cameras, it's going to go crazy. And we had a job to do and we did our job and it felt right. And his mother and father were delighted because they were worried because they'd moved out of the family home and moved into a smaller kind of older person's kind of accommodation, and they didn't have room because in Ireland it's tradition to have the body at home in the house and all the neighbours and everybody comes in. You have a wake and people just get drunk and party. You know, they say in Ireland the only difference between a wedding and a funeral is one guest. So I offered to have Stephen's remains in our home, and Ronan did too. But Margaret said no, she didn't want him leaving the city. He grew up and born, bred in the city centre. So we stayed in the church with him, and it was a beautiful experience, and it was a great way to understand what was going on, and it was a great way to try to come to terms with the loss and to say goodbye.
You're so poignant as well, just to what you did, keeping him company when he didn't like the dark as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're always busy touring with Boyzlife, with Brian McFadden. So you've got Westlife, Boyzone together. And I know earlier you were just talking about it started off kind of like an evening with type thing, and then it's grown in now to you make music together. You do so many venues. What's it like working with Brian? Because it's like a new kind of project in a sense of Boyzone.
Do you know what? We're very similar characters in one respect, and then we're complete opposites in another respect, which actually ironically works somehow. Brian is a seriously talented human being. He really is. I suppose we're similar characters within the bands. Both of us were the jokers, the tricksters. We like to party, we like to drink. And that's how we were always close. That's how we were always friends. But over the last 10 years, our friendship has certainly developed into more of a brother, a brotherly love. And it's not all, bells and roses. Like, we kill each other. We argue.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, if something, when two people spend as much time together as Brian and I do, we spend more time together than a married couple. We travel, we sit in the car, we're on the motorway for 7 hours. We travel all around the world. We're constantly together, just the two of us. We have a tour manager, Rico, who goes everywhere with us, but it's only me and Brian that are together, sitting in the van, playing golf. We do everything together, everything. And it doesn't matter how nice or how kind or how good you are as a human, you're going to have your own little faults and failings. Yeah. And even if you disguise that or hide that from the rest of the world, when you've got somebody living with you day in, day out, they're going to see your faults and failings. They're going to see them. And they don't particularly have to like them. So you take the good with the bad. And Brian and I have a great ability of being able to clear the air very quickly. There's times he could strangle me, I'm sure. And there's definitely times I could strangle him. But we don't let anything build up. We generally try to deal with things in the time. I've learned a great deal off Brian because I'm sensitive, not to hold on to a grudge. Brian is brilliant at letting things go. Probably too good at letting things go. I'm not good enough at letting things go. So I've learned how to let things go a lot quicker through Brian. And Brian has learned how to be a little bit more compassionate through me. And it works. And it only works because we care. Yeah. If you don't care, you're not going to change. If you don't care, you're not going to try to adapt other people's understanding of how things should be. Even if it's not your way. You have to be able, it's like a marriage. It's like any friendship. It's compromise. The secret to success in any relationship between people is compromise, is understanding that you're different people, but you compromise to achieve the same goal.
Wow. This interview, so I've never had an interview where I'm taking stuff in. It's almost like a counselling session for me. I'm just conscious because obviously I know you're going to meet a guest very soon. So
don't worry, you crack on.
I'm going to. I've got one more question, which is, are Boyzone going to get back together?
Wow, the $1 million question. We said in the 25-year anniversary tour that was it. We're never coming back again. This is it. We're done. Let's ring this off on a very positive note. Full world tour, 2018, 2019. Super successful world tour. We thoroughly enjoyed it. It was great fun. Ronan might not agree with that if you look at the documentary, but I thought it was great. And then we did this documentary out of the blue. And the response to the documentary has been phenomenal. So I can't report any facts, but what I can say is that Live Nation, who would be the biggest promoters in the world, have offered us a very inviting reunion tour. And as long as everybody agrees to do it, there's a very big chance that it might happen.
That'd be so cool.
I personally, I have agreed to do it with one clause. I will agree to do it, but myself and Brian have worked too long and too hard with Boyzlife. The brand, the music, the touring, to neglect Boyzlife to do Boyzone. So I said, whatever happens, fine, but we have to have some sort of an inclusion of Brian in some form or fashion.
Okay.
And if they can agree to that, from my side, it could possibly work.
So Brian would be on tour with you as a
Not necessarily in the band, but maybe we bring him on tour and he can do support, or he can do some, just incorporate Brian, because it's important for me, because the Boyzone thing will just be a one-off reunion tour if it happens. The Boyzlife thing is the rest of my life. It's what I do. I love it. There's only two of us. We've worked very, very hard to get to where we are now. As much as we've worked and as much success as we've had, there's still a lot of people that don't know Boyzlife. There's still a lot of people that don't know that Keith from Boyzone and Brian from Westlife are together celebrating the music of both bands. They see our name up in posters and they think it's what you call it, act. What do you call it?
Not novelty.
Yeah, not novelty act, but when you have a band called a tribute.
Ah, there you go. Shane knows.
So yeah, a lot of people come to the show and they think we're a tribute act, and you can see them going, "It's the real Keith! Yeah. It's the real Brian, oh my God. I go, fuck, they still think we're a fucking tribute. So, you know, so we're still working to create the brand. We're still working to get the brand out there on a bigger scale. And I haven't put 9 years in just to walk away from it because we enjoy what we do. It's much easier with 2 people than it is with 5. Much easier. And we don't party like we used to. We can't anymore. We're too old. But we love our golf. And we get the opportunity everywhere we go to play golf. And we have a tournament on the road ongoing. And we're very competitive. And the 2 of us just love the same things. And it's been a lifesaver for me over the last 10 years. I came out of a play in London. I was in a show called A Handful of Stars in London, a Billy Roach play. And I decided I wanted to write a one-man show. And that was stories, laughter and music. And I ended up rewriting it and bringing Brian in. Because we met one night and he asked me what I was doing. I told him, he goes, oh, that sounds great. And I said, right, why don't we write an autobiographical show explaining from our perspective how life was as a Northside dub growing up in a boy band. And you've got Westlife and I've got Boyzone and I'm singing a few songs. And that was the idea was born and we're flat out. We're flat out every weekend. And we did the closing ceremonies for the film festival in Beijing to 2 billion people. We were brought over to Doha to perform at the pitch of the quarterfinals of the World Cup. You know, we get like Gary Player brings us down to Sun City in South Africa to perform down. We just get lovely invitations to sing in great places. And we do a lot of traveling and we love it. And it makes it exciting. There's never 2 days the same. You know, there's always something coming up that's different. And change is good as a rest. So,
wow,
you know,
if you want different, Shane's got you a gig at the Saul's Arms very soon. So, I can't thank you enough. Honestly, this could be a 6-part interview because I've got so many questions that we need number 2. So, we'd love to get you back.
We'll come back to Cornwall.
But thank you so much. Honestly, it's been one of my favorite interviews just to hear you talk so open and honestly. And I mean, your career so far has been huge. And like you said, what's meant to be won't pass you. So I'm looking forward to the next one.
Please God, there's more to come.
Thank you so much, Keith Duffy. Thank you.